At this point in the run, you'll have just gotten the knapsack from White Flower Garden, and that's what we're going to use to do early blues. So go ahead and throw 3 reds and 2 purples behind you and dismiss your squad. Throw 1 red into this bush and the remaining 4 up on the ledge here. And it's this Pikmin that's going to carry us up the ledge, and so we can get to the scale much faster than we'd normally be able to. The positioning of the red doesn't really matter as long as it's close enough to Olimar that when he lays down, it'll be able to reach him. But the positioning of Olimar here is really important. If you were to just lay down somewhere, it might work, it might not. So different runners have come up with different positions that they like to use. So ultimately what really matters is that you find one that works consistently, that you can recognize and get to fast. I know some people like to do this kind of thing. They like to get really close and like turn around, and sometimes it works for me. But the one that I like to use, I don't really know what this plant is actually called, so I'm going to call each one of these structure things a stem. Facing this, there's the one on the left and the one in the middle. You can see a very obvious gap between the two. I like to run behind those with Olimar and lay down such that the orange part of his antenna is then in the middle of these two that I'm standing between right now. It kind of doesn't really matter if it's that exact, but lining it up every time like that at least makes it consistent. Because obviously messing this up, you know, once is only going to waste you like 2 seconds, but once the Pikmin notices me, you should carry me up like that. So, like I said, it really only matters that you find a position that works for you. If you can't get that one to work, try something else, and as long as it's consistent, it doesn't really matter. Now, the reason we threw 4 Pikmin up here, an additional red, is because sometimes, like what just happened there, the red Pikmin will fall down, and we need 2 to actually do early blues. Go ahead and throw 2 reds over here and the 2 purples up here. Maybe. I'm going to call them off the chance totem, though, because I'm going to be talking a lot, and the cutscene will probably play while I'm out of bounds, and I don't want that to mess me up. But if you were to do this at full speed, you would be done with early blues long before that cutscene even played. So the way early blues works, the way we're going to get out of bounds, rather, is by having a cutscene play while a scale's rising. Olimar's position doesn't, like, the position of whatever's on a scale doesn't move with the scale if it's moving during the cutscene. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this part of the scale that I'm standing on right now rise while a cutscene plays, and we're going to be standing on it, so we clip into the scale, which will let us clip into this wall, and we can move along here out of bounds, essentially. There's a little bit of the ground that extends underneath the wall, and that's what we're going to be walking along. So at certain points, namely at the beginning half of the out of bounds movement, the amount of room that we have to stand on is really, really small. So early blues will essentially be a balancing act of trying to keep Olimar from clipping back in bounds and moving out of bounds. And that'll become important in just a second once we actually get out of bounds. So all we have to do, make sure that this section of the scale is lowered. All we have to do is throw a red Pikmin into this poison wall here, and hopefully you haven't accidentally activated the poison alert cutscene in White Flower Garden. Otherwise, you'll need to use a different cutscene, or, to be honest, just reset. We're going to throw a Pikmin into this wall, and he's going to start freaking out because he's being poisoned or whatever. And then we're going to take the second red Pikmin and throw it up onto this scale. At the same time, we're going to be moving on to this part with Olimar, so that when we do that in one fluid motion, the cutscene will play, and the scale will be rising at the same time with Olimar on this side. So what that looks like at full speed is that. And after about half a second or so, you can just skip the cutscene. It doesn't really matter. If you find Olimar to just be standing on top of the scale after the cutscene played, and he's definitely not out of bounds, that means that you you started moving the scale too early. You should wait a little bit longer. And if the scale doesn't move at all, that means you were too late. So you might have to practice that. It's pretty simple. That's definitely the easiest part of the trick, but it's important to get that timing down because messing it up is super frustrating. So what we're about to do next is easily the hardest part of the entire trick. We're going to be actually going out of bounds and maneuvering along that sliver of land I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to be talking about, since we can't see Olimar during any of this, I'm going to be talking about his position in terms of where the cursor is. And I'm going to be talking about it when the cursor is as far away as possible from Olimar and with Olimar facing the cursor. Because obviously I could put the cursor in any one of these positions without actually moving Olimar. So he's looking at the cursor right now, and it's as far away from him as we can possibly make it. So to actually get out of bounds, we need to walk sort of on the left side of the scale. If we just hold up right now, we'll clip through this like corner thing, and we'll be underneath this part of the ground right now, way up here, where I'm whistling at. But before I do that, though, I'm going to say one thing. You want to hold up until Olimar's cursor is in the middle of those leaves right there, in the center point where all the stems branch out from. Because that's, if you go much farther than that, that's where the ground ends, and you'll respawn back by the ship. So I'm just going to hold up, and I'm going to stop right here. If I went pretty much any further than that, Olimar would fall off the map and respawn by the ship. At this point, I'm going to rotate Olimar 90 degrees to the left and press L. My cursor should be somewhere around here. And what this positioning does is it makes it so we can just hold straight up and not have to worry about clipping through this corner here. A lot of people trying to do early blues for the first time, there's two major spots where they clip back and bounce. This is the first one, and it's really easy to do. But if you set it up so that Olimar's cursor is about in the middle of this plant, it doesn't have to be exact, but it has to be pretty close. Turn 90 degrees to the left, press L. You can hold straight now, and you won't have to worry about clipping back and bounds at that corner. So at this point, hold up until the cursor hits about the midpoint of the rock. Just holding straight up. You know, just like that. Now, we have to follow the left edge of the rock here at least a little bit. I recommend you can just pretty much hold essentially straight once you get more comfortable with it, but this is a lot safer to slow down and take your time because the actual ground that we can stand on kind of follows the left edge of the rock here a little bit. So if we just follow the left edge of the rock with Olimar, then we'll be fine. So we want to move a little bit to the left here, just a little bit, and then we can hold straight and stop when you see the cursor drop down a little bit. You can go a little bit farther than this, actually, until the cursor about touches the grass, but I'm going to explain something. We need to move to the right a little bit, and then back to the left, because a lot of people clip back and bounce here because they don't notice this. There's a part of the ridge that goes, you know, to the right, and then the rock comes back out to the left, and there's a part of the rock that's, like, essentially missing, and a lot of people clip back and bounce here. This is a really sharp corner. Well, a drastic change in, you know, the side of the wall. So what we want to do is we want to go to the right just a little bit, not too much, so that we fall off the map. But we want to go just to the right, just a little bit, and this is fine. If I were to hold straight left right now, I would walk straight through this, and I wouldn't clip back and bounce at all. All right, and that's the hard part. So now all we have to do is, there's a lot more room to stand here, so you don't need to worry about staying super far to the left. So all we need to do now is get Olimar in a position where we can turn to the right, walk off the ledge, hold X at the right time, and be good to go. So what I like to do, people have different setups with this. Some people don't even activate the blue Pikmin cutscene earlier on, and they have a completely different setup. But this assumes that you've already activated the cutscene because it'll make this part way easier. So I like to run all the way out to here, and you can see the I guess 3-leaf clover. I don't know what this technically is, but there's one that's way taller than all the others. Is this one that my cursor is both above a leaf and to the left of one of its leaves, and that's the position I like to aim for. Just put the cursor right in here so that it is above one of the leaves and to the left of one of its leaves. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfectly symmetrical or anything like that, but it needs to be close enough to this position. So I'm going to turn 90 degrees to the right, but I'm not quite going to be facing the right direction. It's actually a little bit farther to the right than this, or than where I was, rather. You saw me adjust it. So now I'm facing that black line that I was talking about before head on. Yeah, here we go. It's right here. This black line, I'm facing directly at it, so at this point I should be able to just walk off the ledge and hold X when my cursor clears that line. And I respawn over here. Now, when I say clears the line, I don't mean, you know, it goes over it and then you wait a little bit and then you start holding X. Like, the second it's completely over the line, you need to be holding down X. Otherwise, you'll probably respawn back at the ship from going too late. If you respawn somewhere by White Flower Garden or somewhere that's definitely not the ship or the Blue Onion area, then your positioning was completely wrong. Make sure that you're standing in exactly the same spot I am. You know, the cursor is fully extended away from Olimar at this point, and the cursor is between these two leaves right here. Now, an interesting phenomenon can occur where you respawn over here, but Olimar's light is completely dim. You can't move. You can't switch captains. The only thing you can do at that point is reset. That's caused by one of two things being wrong. If your position was wrong and you were still trying to aim for the black line, then the angle you're taking is completely wrong, and you'll probably end up getting that soft lock to occur. Or the angle that you took was correct, but the timing was very wrong. There are some times where if you press X with the right angle, it just won't work if you pressed X at the wrong time. So I think that I covered everything. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Join the Discord. There's lots of people who will be able to help you there. But yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks for watching, and good luck on the rest of the run.